It's been almost 2 weeks since Halloween ended. I started putting away all of the decorations the day after, and for the most part it was a fairly easy endeavor. For the most part. Aside from the skeleton. I moved into my apartment earlier this year. Leave it to me to decide that 2020 is going to be the year to make the big move. But here we are. I didn't have a lot of things I owned when I moved in, short of some furniture, clothes, and other essential items. Halloween decorations were definitely not one of them. I knew this year was going to be different, what with a worldwide pandemic going on. Going out to Halloween parties weren't exactly on the agenda. I have asthma and high blood pressure, so risking myself to exposure wasn't really an option for me. So I decided fairly early on that I was going to party at home, with just a handful of my closest friends, all having been tested beforehand. It was about a week prior, and I decided to order some Halloween decorations for the party. Some items included in the shopping cart were some Halloween-themed party cups and plates, a fog machine, some wall vinyl, and a particularly creepy-looking prop skeleton. It was only about $1, so I thought it was a hell of a good price at the time. Everything arrived a couple of days later, and I got the apartment all set up for the party. The last thing being the prop skeleton that I had set up to be near the entrance. As soon as I was finished, I got a weird feeling. I looked at the skeleton, and there was something off about it. I couldn't tell you what it was. It just looked like an average prop skeleton you'd see in a biology class. But there was something about this one that stuck out, and, if I'm being frank, scared me. I stared into its dark, eyeless sockets, and I swear it felt like it was staring back at me. It was so unnerving. But I shook my head and dismissed it all as me just being overly tired and anxious about the party. Later that night, I was in and out of sleep, and I had the chilling feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. I turned my head, and could have sworn I saw that skeleton standing over me as I laid in bed. I shot up, ready to scream at nothing. There was nothing there. No skeleton. Nothing. I decided to get up and head to the living room to check on it, and lo and behold, there it was, standing exactly how I'd left it. The next day was the party, which went perfectly. We all had a hell of a time, and by the time the last of my drunken friends headed out to stumble back to their own apartments, I was feeling relatively great. I sat down on my couch to finish off the last of the beer when I happened to look over at the skeleton. Its skull was turned, facing my direction. The room felt cold as I watched this prop skeleton stare at me from across the room. I swallowed, slowly stood up, and began to approach it. It stayed perfectly still, and there wasn't really anything to indicate that anything was out of the ordinary. Rationally, someone could have bumped the skull, causing it to turn. Hell, knowing my friends, any one of them could have turned its head to face my couch just to screw with me. I chalked it up to that and repositioned the skull back to its original direction. I decided to turn in for the night and headed to bed. That night was the same as the previous one. I slept for shit, and randomly throughout, I felt like someone was watching me. At one point, I peeked an eye open to see a pair of bony legs right by my head. I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed that I was dreaming before reopening them and seeing that, once again, nothing was there. I didn't bother getting up to check on the skeleton this time. I just wanted to get back to sleep and get through the night. The next day, I called over my friends to help me clean up and pack away all the Halloween stuff. The last thing to go was the skeleton, which I immediately offered to any one of them that wanted it. My friend Chad offered to take it off my hands for me, since he thought it was cool. I felt so much relief as he carried it out of my apartment. I knew I would be able to sleep soundly. I was wrong. It was another restless night, and once again I felt like someone was watching me. I didn't waste any time this time, and I sat straight up almost immediately and nearly jumped out of my own skin at the sight of that damn skeleton standing at my bed. I sat there, just staring at it before I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that it would just disappear again. I opened them, and it was still there. My mouth went dry, and the cold fear in my body caused me to shiver. It was deathly silent in the room, and I slowly stood up from the bed to move away from it. It stood there just perfectly still as it always did, and I grabbed my android and walked backward out of the room, making sure I didn't turn my back to it. After stepping out, I closed and locked the door and proceeded to call Chad. The phone kept ringing and ringing. He wouldn't answer. The worst thoughts flooded my mind as I continued to call my friend. Why wasn't he answering? I wondered. What happened to him? Finally, after about 10 minutes of calling, there was an answer. A groggy and clearly annoyed Chad asked what the hell I wanted at 3 o'clock in the goddamn morning. Feeling a sense of relief, I asked him why the hell he broke into my house to screw with me by leaving the goddamn skeleton in my room. He said he didn't know what the hell I was talking about and started to say, as I could hear him getting up and moving around, that the skeleton was right there. But he stopped himself. I could hear him say, "What the hell?" over the phone, and then he asked me if I came over and took it. I told him no, that I literally just asked him why he brought it back to me. We got into a sleep-deprived argument, which ended in him saying fuck it and telling me to just keep the damn thing if I wanted it anyway. This was not the result I wanted. After that was when things got really bizarre. When I opened the door and saw that it was still there, I decided to pick it up and take it outside, tossing it into the dumpster. I went back to bed to attempt to sleep again, failing miserably. When I woke up the next morning, I screamed in horror. The skeleton was there again, standing over me. Apprehensive at first, I decided enough was enough, and I grabbed the skeleton and tossed it to the other side of the room. I then started to rip each of its individual body parts off, placing each one in a separate grocery bag, and drove around the city, dropping each separate part in different trash cans at locations such as Walmart, the local car wash, etc. Certain that I would never see that damn skeleton ever again, I drove home, deciding that I was going right back to sleep. I opened the door to my apartment and froze in absolute terror. It was there, the skeleton. It was standing in the exact spot I'd had it set up during the party. Its arms were held out as if to take my coat. I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream. I just stared into its deep, dark eye sockets. It's been like this ever since. I've tried everything to get rid of it. I destroyed it over and over again. I've burned it. I've chopped it up. I've tried everything I could think of, but it always comes back. Eventually, I stopped going home, and right now I'm staying at my parents' house, sleeping in my old bedroom. I thought I could escape it, but it's here now, too. I stepped out to use the bathroom, and when I came back, it was sitting on my bed. I don't know what this thing is or what it wants. I don't know why it won't leave me alone. It hasn't harmed me in any way, yet. I don't know what's going to happen. I just want to sleep again.